At this time, we're going to switch to our final presenter. That is Executive Director Major Judy Regamey at the Crossroads Residential Services. Welcome, Major Judy.
Thanks, Tim. It's a privilege to be here and to be part of this presentation. I've been a Salvation Army officer for 40 years. And if you don't know, we get transferred from place to place, and it's our privilege to be back in Saskatoon. I was born and raised in Saskatchewan, Melfort actually, so it's so good to be home. My appointment that I'm responsible for is Crossroads Residential Services and Saskatoon Temple and Community and Family Services in Saskatoon. Crossroads, let me tell you a little bit about Crossroads Residential Services. We have 3 buildings, one that is on the corner of Avenue T and 19th Street in Saskatoon. And that building is sort of our main center. We have a building on Avenue T, which has become a men's transitional housing unit. And we have a girls' home in Sutherland, which is on Cruz Street, and that is for girls aged 12 to 18. In our emergency shelter that's on Avenue T, we house men who are 18 years of age and older. They can stay with us for up to 2 weeks, and we try to find them permanent housing. They would see a caseworker, and we try to find them permanent housing while they're with us. On Avenue T, we have a transitional home, again for men who are aged 18 and older, and they're able to stay with us a little bit longer. One of the things that we have found is that guys will come to us, they'll stay in our shelter, we try to find them permanent housing, they move to their own apartment, they lose their apartment, they come back to us. It's a bit of a cycle. And so for some of them. And so we thought if we could have this transitional place where they could stay for a year even, possibly longer, where we could help them work on some of the barriers that are keeping them from obtaining and keeping their permanent housing. So that's what the place on Avenue T is all about. And then of course we've got Cruz Street, Bethany Home, which actually has been in operation for many, many years. It used to be called the Bethany, the Unwed Mother's Home and Hospital. Babies were actually born in that building, which is kind of an interesting thing. That was on our older building on Avenue T. On Queen Street. Anyway, now Bethany Home is for girls who are having trouble transitioning into a foster home. They may be having some difficulties where they can't stay, and so they need a place to sort of land and see what the difficulties are and to find them a better place to live. So social services actually brings us the girls and they live with us, and we try to help stabilize them. They could stay with us for a week, sometimes longer, sometimes a month. During the COVID time, we've had girls stay with us for quite a bit longer, which has been a good thing. Saskatoon Temple and Family Services is located on Bateman Crescent. Saskatoon Temple is our church, and Family Services is run out of that building. The church, of course, as Ed was saying, how do you do church in this COVID time? It's been very challenging. We also have run our Family Services out of the church building. The Family Services has been running a program that probably for over 30 years, that's probably the best homelessness prevention program that I've seen the Army do. It's a trust program. And so folks are mandated, the folks that we work with, many of them are mandated to come to us through social services. And we make sure that their rent is paid, that their utilities are paid, and they have a safe place to live. And then they would be issued the rest of their check to spend as they chose. But they have a place to live. That is so important. So it's a great program that they run. They also, as Ed mentioned, did the backpack program. What an exciting time that was. We just distributed all the backpacks last week. We did 1,307 backpacks. So that was kind of a fun thing to see in action, and challenging to figure out how do we get our volunteers to actually pack these backpacks and remain, socially distant and that sort of thing. And how do people come and pick up the backpacks? All those details were worked through by our staff, and 1,307 kids got a backpack. So I thought that was really great. Another thing that Family Services does is the Nutrient Food on the Move. That has been a program that's been running for several years, and they deliver, our staff use the emergency disaster vehicle and deliver lunches for kids who might be playing in the playgrounds or wherever. They have several spots that they drive to, and they can give out a little lunch for the kids. So that's been a great program, which we really appreciate the support from Nutrien. Some of the effects that COVID had on us, of course, as Ivy said on that day, I mean, we didn't have to lock our doors, but we did have to make some pretty big changes. First of all, one of the big things that we had to change was our community meals. We would offer community meals to the public for $2. They could come and have vegetables and potatoes and meat and a really nice meal for $2. One day I was at Tim Hortons actually last summer, and I was listening to a couple of gentlemen. I guess I was eavesdropping. As soon as they say Salvation Army, my ears perked up, right? And I wanted to hear what they had to say. So this one guy says, "Oh, you should come with me down to the Salvation Army. You can get a whole meal for $2 and it's really good." I thought, what great advertising that is, right? Word of mouth. And so I guess they were going to come down to the Salvation Army for supper that night. But I thought that was kind of a neat thing. Anyway, that was one of the first things that we had to close down, was our community meals. We had a couple of guys actually who had graduated from our residential program. They had lived with us for quite a few years, and we finally were able to house them. But they relied daily on us for their meals because they were old bachelors and not the best at cooking, and you could tell their health was suffering. And so some of our staff were able to arrange to freeze some of the meals that we were serving, or to buy some TV dinners or whatever and take it over to them, because they only live across the alley from us. And so we were able to still help in that small way. For some of the community. But it's great to work with staff residents that live with us. Another thing that had to change was that the capacity of our dorms had to be reduced. And so we have 2 large dorms, one with 15 guys that sleep there, and one with 12 guys that sleep there. Well, there's no way we could do that. So we actually, we had some renovations done that seemed to take forever. But anyway, they finally got finished right at the beginning of March. So we had 7 extra spaces that we could take some of those dorm guys, the guys sleeping in the dorms, and put them there. We also had this property on Avenue T, and we thought, there's 10 bedrooms, 10 private bedrooms in that building that we could use. We could take some more guys out of the dorm and put them there. Well, that turned out just to be a great solution for us. So we were able to do that. We also had to stagger our meal time, right? Because you can't have all these guys coming down for a meal. And I think we could have I think we can house about 50 guys in the dining room. Well, you couldn't do that. So we had to figure out a way to have them come down in groups. And so we issued everybody a meal card. And they had a specific color. And so even yet, I mean, we're still doing it, right? You call the blue cards down for their meal and the green cards next. And we didn't have a captain's table, though. It kind of reminded me of a cruise ship or something, right? Where you come down in groups or whatever. But anyway, it was kind of a good solution because the guys, they knew what color it was and they'd come down when their color was called. And so there was no sort of mingling and waiting in the lobby. We were able to keep those crowds, kind of big groups of people, separate. We also had to open up 2 more dining rooms. So we have a chapel that we turned into a dining room. We have an education room that we turned into a dining room. So there were 3 different places. So not only did your color mean you went down at a certain time for a meal, it also indicated what dining room you were eating in. So that really helped us get through that piece of it. Of course, we've had to up the cleaning. I mean, we've always tried to keep up with the cleaning, but a little different now, sanitizing door handles and railings and making sure guys wash their hands, which is not an easy task, let me tell you. But, you know, they tried to cooperate as much as they could. They were getting sick of being sprayed with hand sanitizer, but they know it's important. And we have a wash basin not a wash basin, a sink with running water that they could wash their hands right before they picked up their meal. And so we had to institute that. And for the most part, the guys were cooperative of that. One of the things that we needed to do was increase our programming. And so we've got a couple of chaplains who were willing to jump right in and increase programming. We all heard those advertisements about you know, stay safe, stay home. But if you have no home, is a very different concept. Like, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? And so our guys that came to us, we tried to have as many activities as we could. We got a great donation from Cameco, and which helped us with programming ideas. And so we really encouraged guys to stay put and not wander around. Bethany Home, that was challenging to keep the girls at home. If you've ever had a teenager in your house, you will know keeping a teenager home is not an easy thing. And so again, with this Cameco money, we were able to buy some Xboxes. We've had Xbox tournaments. We bought this basketball thing for indoors, and we were able to do that. I mean, we've really upped the game with programming just to encourage those girls and to encourage our guys to stay put. One of the neat things that we did here was, or over at the Avenue T property, was to have the chaplains do sort of a woodworking and gardening program. One of the chaplains got some guys together and they actually dug a little garden, which has produced a great crop. But it was so neat. We had one guy who was helping with the garden, and he's kind of a biker, and so, well, he is a biker. So he's wearing these big boots and his leather stuff, and he's in the garden, and he looks at his boots and he says, "I think my boots are going to get dirty doing this. There's mud on them." So he hadn't done any gardening, right? So anyway, it was a little bit humorous. So he decided that was not the job for him. But we also had some guys doing some woodworking stuff, which was really interesting. They hadn't, for them to actually build something. They were building these flower boxes, and they built, they built picnic tables and swings, and we were able to share some of that with the neighbors. Again, Cameco, thank you for that donation. We were able to buy wood and tools, and the guys, it kept them busy, and they actually could see what they had made. So it was kind of a neat experience. Our food services manager actually was going to deliver some food to the Avenue T property, which it actually has a name now. It's called Pathways on Avenue T. But anyway, he was delivering some food, which he was stopped as he was going in by one of the neighbors. And so the neighbor said, I just want to thank you. The chaplains and the guys have done such a great job making this property look so good, because we had planted flowers. Not we, they had planted flowers out in the front, and it was so neat. And so this guy said, I've always worked on my backyard, but I've never done anything to the front yard because, well, for whatever reason. So he said, I've decided this year to plant some flowers in my front yard. And my cousin lives down the street and he's going to do the same thing. And we have a friend who lives on this same street. We're all going to plant flowers in our front yard. And we were able to share a flower box with a couple of the neighbors, and they were planting flowers. And he said, it's just so nice to be part of the neighborhood and it feels like a neighborhood. So I thought that was a really neat story to come out of this whole COVID thing, that it sort of brought the neighbors together and to beautify one part of the city. As we continue forward, there are some things that we're concerned about. For example, the community meals. We don't know when we'll be able to provide those. We are trying to come up with an idea maybe of a mobile unit that might go out and serve soup to people. We're very conscious, though, of groups gathering. We want to be really careful with that. Maybe it might look like that. Yes, I don't know. We're just trying to sort some of those details out. Christmas carols coming up. We're trying to figure out what does that look like this year. Cash, so many of us never have cash anymore. Eh? In some places, some of us pay cash. So there's some pretty big challenges that we're facing in trying to figure out how is this going to work this year. If you've got any ideas, let me know. But we're not out of the woods yet. We recognize that. Ivy, you're right. We're in this for the long haul. But we continue to practice the safety precautions that we've put in place. And we continue to offer our program. That doesn't change. Much has changed, but let me tell you, not our desire to give hope to those who need it most.
Well, thank you so much, Major Judy. My goodness, so many things you guys are doing in Saskatoon. What was that number? 1,307 backpacks? That's incredible. So I have a couple questions.
I forgot to mention, we also delivered in this Food on the Move, we also delivered 21,522 lunches to kids over the summer. That's
21,500 lunches from the Nutrient Food on the Move?
Yes, and 22. Don't forget the 22.
The 22 counts. That's for certain, Judy. That's incredible. That's amazing. Okay, I have a couple questions here. Just bear with me. I'm having a little trouble with my sound. One of the things that I heard quite a bit is the changes you've had to make at Crossroads. As soon as things hit, you had to get creative on where you had to sleep people and how important it was to try to take care of them. We started in March. We didn't even hit the worst of our winters. How do you see this winter playing out?
Well, I don't think we will ever go back to 15 guys sleeping in a room. The dorm thing, I think, is gone for good. So we're in the process now of trying to figure out, we've got the Avenue T program up and running. That's going to give us 10 extra beds. We've got the renovated part of our building with 7 extra beds, but that's still not enough. So we're going to try to partition off some of those dorms to make them into individual rooms, because if you've got a guy coughing through the night, that's going everywhere, right? So we really need to look at individual rooms for sure.
Wow. Yep. We only have a few seconds left. I have a quick question for you. Is there anything that you missed the most from pre-COVID that you're anxious to get started?
We did a really neat thing, our kitchen staff, and we've been sponsored for this program, I think a few years ago, but it's special meals. We found that over Christmas, there were so many community meals. The city of Saskatoon is so generous, and there were always a lot of Christmas meals. So we decided that we would do these special meals. So it was like an ordinary day for ordinary people who would come in, and boom, they'd have this incredible meal. And they wouldn't know it was coming, and they'd be seated, there'd be tablecloths and fancy dishes, and they'd have an hors d'oeuvre and a salad and soup and a nice, one time we were sponsored by this meal, but we got prime rib. I mean, really, what, for $2, they got a prime rib dinner, and they had dessert, and, the tables, there was decorations, nice lighting. It was such a neat thing for such an ordinary day, right? And wow. I really miss that. And so I'm hoping that one day we can come back to that, because it was such a treat for these folks.
That's a great way to end this, Judy. I've always been amazed on how people get creative to show dignity and respect, and that was just, and a lot of love with that last gift. That's incredible. This actually sums up our speaker portion of the presentation today. Thank you so much, everyone that's been able to help. First off, I'd like to thank Major Les Marshall for leading us today. Executive Director Ivy Scobie from the William Booth Special Care Home, Major Ed Dean at the Maple Creek Community Church, and Executive Director Judy Regamey at the Crossroads Residential Services and the Saskatoon Temple and the Bethany Home. Judy, you're busy. I also finally like to thank my co-host Roberta Pronto, and for Karen in the background that's making all of this possible. Last but not least, we want to thank you so much, the donors. Everything you've heard today is only possible because of your generosity. Sincerely, we cannot fill in the gaps to make this life filled with dignity and to give hope to the vulnerable without your help. So on behalf of myself and the entire team here at the Salvation Army, we want to say a sincere thank you. To finish off the presentation today, we have a video from Lieutenant Colonel John Murray. We'll be sticking around to answer any questions. If you have any, please use that chat button. It's not too late. We'll make sure that we can do everything we can to answer them. Thank you again for joining us, and God bless.
When COVID-19 brought the world to a standstill, it also put the future of hundreds of thousands of Canadians in jeopardy. More than ever, our communities needed us, and we needed you. Thanks to you, and because of your generosity and kindness, hungry school-aged children received food. Struggling families knew where they could find their next meal, and lonely seniors were able to digitally connect with their loved ones. People experiencing homelessness found a safe place to sleep, and our food banks were stocked to meet the increased demand for assistance. Our work is not over. Indeed, it is only just beginning as the recovery effort continues. We're grateful for your support and invite you to visit salvationarmy.ca for up-to-date information on the Salvation Army's COVID-19 response. On behalf of the Salvation Army and those we've served during the COVID-19 pandemic, thank you. Together, we're giving hope today.